Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is CMG Talk. This is Catherine Gallagher. I'd like to talk to you about disruptive behaviour. And often we term behaviours or people that cause massive disrupting behaviour as disruptors. We often term them disruptors because of the chaos that ensues when they act up or when they do or say or they cause particular emotions and reactions because of how they are. And sometimes if you think about these types of situations and scenarios, when I ask people how they feel, it's often a very strong reaction when we identify disruptors and disrupting behaviour. And it might not be that the person in particular is meaning it with ill intention. It could be that maybe the disruptive behaviour disruptors are maybe somebody that's been affected by maybe a health condition, and maybe they've got a completely changed personality. Sometimes people say, if somebody's had maybe, for instance, a brain injury, and maybe their personality's changed. Maybe, they used to be a really quiet person, or, they never used to be so argumentative, and now they can fly off the handle. Their behaviour is very disruptive, and it's a disruptor. I would say that I would term their behaviour and the way they are as disrupting. You can go out and they can go from 0 to 100. They're very aggressive, and it's very scary at times. It might also be, for instance, if somebody, has Alzheimer's or dementia, and maybe their personality's changed as well. It could be, for instance, if somebody finds it very difficult to cope with a traumatic experience, and maybe they default to anger as the emotion they default to. Disruptive behaviour and disruptors can often be if somebody, maybe a child, maybe is acting up, and maybe it's what they're defaulting to. Maybe it's because of their background, or maybe it's because something's happening and there's, changes within the family dynamics, and this is how they are actually being heard, being understood, or getting some kind of attention, even if it's negative attention. The difficulty with labelling somebody as a disruptor is it can often be seen as negative. Sometimes a disruptor is somebody that's trying to be heard and have their voice heard. Somebody's very vocal, and maybe they're trying to be heard, to be seen, to be understood, and maybe they have a cause. It might be that they're speaking up in behalf of a societal problem. They're trying to change something that they feel is an injustice. They might be seen as being a disruptor. They might be seen as somebody that's disruptive behaviour. They might cause people to feel uncomfortable because they're bringing people out of their comfort zone. They might be challenging somebody's way of thinking or being, but that might not always be a bad thing. But it might feel uncomfortable, and it might feel that they're disruptive because of maybe their behaviours, their actions, or the way they talk publicly if they have a public platform. Sometimes people are disruptives because they challenge perceptions or the way people think because of how they express themselves. Artists, right? In fashion and design. Musicians sometimes are disruptive because they challenge norms or the way people see things, especially if they're paving the way with something new. I sometimes can challenge people's way of thinking because I'm taking them out of their comfort zone. It's disrupting someone's state of how they are. But maybe I'm doing it because, or I am doing it, not maybe, I'm doing it because what they're doing isn't working. So sometimes when people listen to my episodes, they might go, oh, this is really taking me out of my comfort zone. This is not something I'm used to, or this sounds a bit out there, or whatever. But it's disruptive, and it's meant to be, because the way things are and the way things people are doing, sometimes they need to hear things in a different way, and they're listening to it because they think, do you know what, this is challenging me, but it's maybe challenging me in a good way. Have you ever listened to something? I remember going to an opera and listening to something that was really challenging and really difficult for me to listen to. But after I went away and thought about it and reflected on it. And at the time I was like, oh my goodness, I can't get my head around this. What was I thinking of? But when I got it translated and I understood what it was about, the message that it was actually conveying was something really, really important. But it was very disruptive at the time. So disruption, disruptive behaviour, disruptors can actually be a positive thing because it can disrupt us for positive change. We often see disruption as negative, but it isn't always. It might be uncomfortable. It might take us out of our comfort zone. It might challenge us in ways we never imagined. It might make us reflect. And it also might make us go back to how things were because it's safe, it's comfortable, or maybe it's just how we prefer things to be. Who's to judge? It's up to us how we deal with, how we manage, how we process, and what we do with disruption. I've been in disruptive situations. I've experienced people that are very disruptive and very challenging. I'm sure you have too. Sometimes when we experience that, we have different ways of thinking, different ways of being, and we react to it in different ways. Some people like to and choose to avoid any type of disruption or disruptive behaviour. Some people like to be in the middle of it and they're up there giving it, yes, let's disrupt, make it chaotic. And other people like to sit back, observe. And sometimes it depends on what it's about. Have you ever saw something that looks chaotic and you see other people looking at it and going, yes, this is very interesting, this is very intriguing, this speaks to me. And you're looking at it and going, it's just splashes of paint, or it's something there that makes no sense to me, but to someone else, their imagination is taken over and they're creating something in their own mind, in their own space. You see people making order out of chaos. Disruption can be something that someone sees as not chaotic. Quite the opposite. Some people live in a very chaotic world, and some people who are disruptors, that's what they live on, that's what they thrive on, and that's how they survive. Sometimes thrive. Many of us don't really like to be around chaos and disruption. Many of us like to have things that we can make sense of. We feel we know and have certainty. And when we are confronted with things that are disruptive, or people that are disruption orientated, we often find that difficult to understand or make sense of, or find where we are with it. Is this making sense? So often when I hear people talking to me about behaviours, attitudes, thinking that are taking them out with their own spatial awareness, they're taking them outside what they would normally see as comfortable or fitting with them. They often try to conform with it, or they often find it difficult to make sense of it. But they often find that they have to try. Especially if it's behaviours with people that they know they love, people within their own circle. Sometimes though, if it's too disorganised or it's too disruptive, regardless of who it is, sometimes people will say, I have no choice, but I have to survive. I have to thrive. And that means that I have to maybe decide to limit my contact, my involvement, the engagement I have around this person, with this person. Sometimes we have periods of time around somebody that's disruptive, and we look for calm, and we look for norm, and we look for something to be in a place where we have some certainty. But if they're addicted to that sense of disruption and chaos, or they're always looking to get that feedback, always wanting to get that sense of adrenaline rush, or to get that sense of notoriety or visibility, it's very seductive. And often it's a status thing as well. The why. Why are you like this? Why do you need to be like this? What is it giving you? Why? Because of the impact it's having on me and the people around me, people around you. Sometimes people don't tell us why, but we know from the way things are that there is a reason. Sometimes people are not in a place psychologically to be able to tell us if they're unwell, but we know the impact. But if someone is in a situation where they understand the impact and the chaos and the distress and alarm, do we expect them to do something about it? To take ownership and accountability? What if they don't comply? What if they don't want to? What if they don't want to make changes? What if they quite like being disruptive? Some people do. I hear people tell me that they like provoking, they like the attention, they like the power, they like the notoriety, they like the status. They might not like the feedback, they might not like necessarily when they get challenged or criticised. Sometimes they do. But if you're aware and consciously aware and you know the intentionality is to cause and provoke and cause that sense of uncomfortableness, you're fighting a cause. You're trying to create a sense of self-importance. You're trying to stand out from the crowd. But if it's causing a particular dynamic or change within your family, your friends, sometimes we surround ourselves with like-minded people and we're attracted to people that give us a sense of self and a sense of self-worth. So we'll often be attracted to people that are disruptive too. It's the herd mentality, isn't it, often? So, disruptive, disruptor, different types of behaviour and how that is. And it's all not always about confrontation and aggression or anger. It can be different types. Sometimes people are very, very subtle about the way they cause disruption. We know and we hear of people that, sometimes we see it. It's very skillful sometimes how people manipulate. I'm not saying, however, I just thought you'd like to know, and then they drop in something, don't they, into conversation. I thought you might like to know because I think it's important you're made aware of, and they tell you something, knowing that when they share that information, that it's going to cause a particular fallout. Have you ever had that? Disruptive behaviour. And sometimes people hold you to that. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell them I've told you. But you know that by them sharing it with you, nothing good's going to come of it. Nothing good will come of them sharing that information. They know that by sharing it, it's power, it's control, it's disruption, it's disharmony. Manipulation. So when we think about different dynamics, people around us and what we feel is going on, And whether people intentionally are disrupting to cause harm, to cause upset, or whether people have been disruptive because they're challenging for the good, to cause us to be able to step up and be the best version of ourselves, or they're challenging behaviours because it's an injustice, it's a social injustice, it's for better housing, it's for better equality, it's for, to do with, distributing wealth and, distributing, I'm making things up here, but, looking at equality and diversity and looking at making things fairer. And some people do that. They disrupt how things are and they cause and challenge things, sometimes very forcefully. And they will cause disruption because they want to make sure that injustice is challenged. And sometimes they do it in a way where somebody might say, I hear why, but I might not necessarily agree the what or how, but I understand the why. I might agree with the why. I might relate to it. I might have empathy and compassion for it. But the what you did and how you did it, maybe not. Or maybe I feel you could have did it in a different way. And some people do use words, and if you've listened to my episode about words matter, some people, they'll write poems and lyrics and songs and disrupt by words and lyrics and songs and music to get across disruption. To express. So for me, disruption is a very interesting topic. And when I talk about disruption and I hear people talking to me about things that have maybe taken them out of their comfort zone and behaviours and attitudes that have been very disruptive, and maybe individuals have found as disruptors that come along and basically cause chaos or challenge the status and the norm, understanding that behaviour, is it healthy, is it unhealthy, is it discomfort, or is it, the intention, what's the intention about it, what's the agenda about it? And when we unpack it, can often help us to understand why we feel the way we feel and what it means for us, and whether it's actually something that is uncomfortable for us, but it's not necessarily unhealthy or necessarily bad for us, if you like, or whether it's just something that is challenging us, and whether there is an accountability and responsibility there for us, for other people, and whether somebody can be responsible if it's a health situation, if they're young and maybe they're still trying to figure out boundaries about right and wrong. And we can all think of examples in our own life where maybe we've had these types of behaviours. And as I'm talking these things through, I know often people say to me that when you talk these things through, examples come to my mind in my own personal situation. I start thinking about examples. I think, yeah, I remember that happened, or something like that happened in my life, and how that actually made me feel and where I am with it now, and maybe taking it forward a bit further, maybe I could maybe feel this way, or maybe I could do that, or maybe I've closed that down now, or maybe I've moved on from it. Understanding where we are with particular types of behaviour can be really helpful for us in our life, and understanding our quality of life and where we are and how much power we give away to people when they have particular behaviours. Because not everyone, when they're disruptive, are trying to cause a situation where they're trying to take power. But some are. And it's understanding what the intention is. Are you a disruptor? Do you have people that are disruptive? Do you understand the term disruption and disruptor? And is it something in your life that you think about? Thanks for listening. Until next time. Maybe we could think about apology. Sorry, not sorry, and what types of apologies we get in life. And whether, do we ever need an apology to move forward and move on? Just a thought. Okay, until next time, thanks for listening. Remember to like, share and download, and remember that it's always good to get understandings of topics you would like me to talk about. And often people give me suggestions, and often these suggestions come up as I do trainings. I'm about to do further trainings in mental health toolkits and other types of topics. So if there's topics you would like me to talk about and share some thoughts and ideas on, and a lot of people ask me, where do my thoughts and ideas and understanding come from? It's from all the mental health trainings, and it's from the coachings and things that I do, and when I write my work, and often people share ideas and share thoughts and say, talk about this in podcasts, and I do. Okay, so that's where a lot of the things I talk about come from. It's from people saying, hey, what about this? And is this something you could talk about? And I'd like to hear more about that. And just my thoughts and my understandings, and obviously it's from what other people have said too. And it's always good to share understandings and thoughts, and it's how we grow, learn and understand, isn't it? I'm always understanding and learning and growing from people around me, and from listening and opening myself up to so many thoughts and ideas and readings from other people and research too. Thanks for listening. Take good care, and until next time. Bye for now.